This is the Sports Bash Warm-Up with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Josh Hennig.
I'm going to do my job. I'm not going to let the city down. I'm going to go present my city. That's what I've always done. My family and my teammates. So the mindset doesn't change. I mean, it doesn't matter the fact that I don't like that idea and I still don't believe in it.
Candid comments from Joel Embiid. He finally had a Zoom meeting with the media. He was, for the visual, paint the picture for you, he was sitting on the side of the Sixers practice facility, leaned up against the wall with a hoodie on, just chilling on the wall and just giving you some candid answers from the team's franchise player. Josh Hennig here, 97.3 ESPN. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. We got a lot to these. Joel Embiid said a lot of poignant things yesterday, so we're going to get to that during the hour today. Also, to Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg joined the show coming up at 1:25. We'll touch on everything that's been going on with Desean Jackson over the last, really 36 hours, not even the last 24 hours. It's 36 hours. It really was a deal where it was Monday night through the entirety of yesterday into this morning. So we'll get into that with him. Also, his perspective as someone who's covered the Eagles for over 26 years. The Eagles are offering to fans they can defer their season tickets to next year. Also, what does Dave think about what's going on with baseball? Their testing numbers have come out, the latest numbers. For those who don't know, ESPN is reporting that MLB had 8 days of intake tests by players and by coaches. They took 3,740 tests. Only 66 positive. Of the positives, those 66, 58 were players, 8 were staff. And then the first batch of the next round of monitoring, they took in 2,111 tests, only 10 positives of that group. So you're talking about a 1.8% positive rate on the first set of tests and a 0.5%. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because, and I'm really glad those numbers came out, because Joel Embiid spoke yesterday very candidly about a lot of things. And I think that we have to realize that these players are people too. They're humans. They have a lot of emotions, varied emotions. And Joel Embiid brought up the fact that, listen, I'm going to do what's necessary for us to win, but I can't speak for everybody else. And you look at those numbers that came back from Major League Baseball, the fact that the 2 rounds of testing was always somewhere between 0.8 and 1.8 positive test rate. And I think it's a very, very, very important thing to focus on, because one could say that the baseball players are trying to be responsible. The baseball players, you see Mike Trout actually working out with a mask on. So we know that the baseball players are doing their best to make this work. But as Joel Embiid pointed out yesterday on his Zoom call with the media, there's something to be said for everybody else, even if you are doing your job. Maybe everyone else isn't doing their job.
I know I'm gonna do the right things. I know I don't ever do anything. I only play video games. I'm always home. I don't do anything. But then again, I don't trust those other guys to do the same. So, but like I said, I gotta do my job.
If you are not a fan of Joel Embiid, or you're lukewarm on Joel Embiid being the franchise player, you got to turn around now and realize that this guy cares a lot about things that you didn't realize he cared about. Joel Embiid wants to win a championship. Joel Embiid wants to represent the city. And a lot of his problems with the plan has to do with the fact that he has a lot of questions about if everybody's else going to do their job. And that's what it really comes down to. The success and the viability of these bubbles, whether it's the MLS starting up today, whether it's the NBA, the NHL. The NHL is going to have 2 cities, by the way. The NBA is going to be all together down in Disney's Wide World of Sports complex. What's going to happen is if one person tries to get out of the bubble, or one person's irresponsible, or one person, tries to lie about their symptoms, or whatever the scenario, one person doesn't wear the Oura ring and decides not to wear it, and that's the person that tests, whatever the scenario is, that's the one person that can put everybody else in harm's way. Because let's not forget, there are other problems in the world aside from COVID-19. COVID-19 may have been the thing that shut down sports, but that's not the only type of contagion, to be a little sci-fi for a moment, that can derail anything. There's a lot of unknowns about the other things that COVID-19 does. And not to go hyper-medical for a second, but hear me out. Even if you're carrying a virus and you're asymptomatic, you may be asymptomatic for COVID or something else like the flu or some other disease. But it doesn't mean that you being asymptomatic for one disease doesn't make you immune compromised for another sickness. So what if somebody doesn't get COVID-19, but their immune system is weakened and they get sick with something else? What happened to Joel Embiid last year? Stomach virus. He was having digestive problems, to put it lightly. And Joel Embiid is out here saying, look, I don't love this idea. And he was even asked outright on the media call, did you think about opting out? This is what his answer was.
I thought about it, but then again, I wouldn't let my teammates down. I play in the city. That's tough. And, I consider myself as being tough. You can look at the way I play the game, just being physical, getting to the free throw line. And, I'm not going to give up that easily.
He talked about not wanting to let down his teammates, not wanting to let down the city. He wants to represent Philadelphia. He wants to go out there and play. Let me hear from you, 609-403-0973, because I've heard from some of you for the last few weeks saying, hey, people like me still have to go to work. I've got numerous texts from people pointing out that the rest of the world is still going to work. They think sports should come back. Well, Joel Embiid just told you, listen, I thought about opting out, but I didn't want to let my teammates down. I want to represent my city. This is a hardworking city of Philadelphia. Doesn't that get you excited? It certainly gets me excited. It tells me that Joel Embiid genuinely cares about not just winning a championship, but he wants to represent Philadelphia. He doesn't want to let his teammates down. And that tells me that his intentions and his heart is in the right place. And listen, sometimes your intentions and your desire to do the right thing may not always add up. But at least we know where Joel Embiid is coming from. And that is vitally important in all this, because if we understand where Joel's heart is and that he wants to go out there and do the best for his teammates and represent the city, if you don't love Joel Embiid before, you better love him now, because this guy literally is telling you that his desire is to do this for the city of Philadelphia, for Sixers fans. And I love that. I'm on board with that. And so should you. Because when the Sixers return, when they head down to Orlando on Thursday and they start setting up and getting ready to play these games, which you can hear the games when they resume on August 1st right here on 97.3 ESPN. When Joel Embiid and the 76ers get back on the court, he's out there because he feels loyalty to his teammates and he feels loyalty to you, Sixer fans. How do you feel about that? 609-403-0973. Here's more from Joel Embiid.
I want to represent my city. I've been here too long, and this is my opportunity. I feel like I believe we have a great chance of winning this championship. I'm still not 100% sure, but that's what I'm thinking. I want to represent the city. I don't want to let my teammates down. I don't want to let anybody down, and I've been working too hard for this, so I just gotta keep pushing and hope for the best.
I want to represent my city. We have a chance to win a championship. I've been working at this too long. Joel Embiid sounds like a Philadelphia fan's dream right now. And I don't think he was just saying that because he thinks he's supposed to say it. Joel Embiid was very candid. He did not smile one time during this entire Zoom call. I was grabbing these audio cuts yesterday, and I kept thinking, Joel Embiid hasn't smiled, he hasn't laughed, he hasn't chuckled, he hasn't made any wisecracking remarks. He has been brutally and completely honest this entire 20-plus minutes on this Zoom call. And you could tell he was not thrilled about doing the Zoom call because I think he was uncomfortable with answering some of these questions. But he answered them completely and honestly. So he's not just saying stuff to make you feel good. He's saying the truth. He's telling you, this is my mentality. And if that's what he thinks, and this is what he believes, then daggone it, I am on board with Joel Embiid. And I hope even more now that Joel stays healthy and that he goes out there and balls and he dominates this bubble and the Sixers get to the NBA Finals. Not because of anything else, but I want to see Joel Embiid rewarded for his hard work and how he feels and what he's thinking. Joel Embiid believes that they can win a championship. He believes in representing the city of Philadelphia. And even though he's saying, look, I'm going to do my job, I'm not crazy about this bubble idea, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to fight. And I'm going to try to win a championship. And as he said, listen, I'm not like other guys. I'm not going to risk anything as we go into this bubble.
We all different. There's some guys that like to go out. There's some guys that like to do stuff. There's some guys that like adventure. So that's the way I'm thinking. I know myself. I know I'm not going to put everybody else at risk. But the question is everybody else going to do the same? And I surely, just being around this business, I surely don't think so.
Joel Embiid is basically telling you that he is going to work out, go home, play video games, go play games, go back to his hotel. He ain't going to play no golf. He's not going to go try to do any shenanigans. He's not going to go hang out with a bunch of guys down in the lobby. He's going to work out with his teammates. He's going to play games. He's going to go home and play video games. And he's going to try to win a championship. Listen, if you ever could root for a player, you got to root for Embiid because he's being honest, he's being genuine, and he's going to do whatever it takes to stay in the clear so his team has a chance to win a championship. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. That should get you excited. That should get you pumped up. Because what Joel is saying is, listen, other dudes may do stuff, but I'm not going down there to risk anything. I'm not going down there to be adventurous, as he calls it. I'm going down there to win a championship. And that's exactly what Philly fans always want. How many times have people said, we love the guy who works hard. We love the guy who's all about winning. We love the guy who's out there to be competitive. Joel Embiid is telling you that he's that guy. And he plans on showing you he's that guy. He's been working hard. He's been getting back from injury. He's been working out in the gym. He's telling you, I'm not going to risk the things that other guys might. So while there may be some other dudes that get corona or may get positive tests because they're doing ABC, Joel's telling you he's not going to risk that because he wants to get back on the court. And as he says, he wants to get back to dominating on the court.
I'm excited to, keep improving and keep being that guy. I was on the path right before the season got shut down. I was on that path to just get back to what I was doing last year, which was dominating everybody, and I was on that path.
He says he was on that path to get back to dominating. Like I said, this should be your guy, Philly sports fans. This should be the guy that you're all now going out and buying jerseys and buying T-shirts and following him on social media and hashtagging Joel and all kinds of things. This is what you want, isn't it? To paraphrase Russell Crowe's character in Gladiator, are you not on board and entertained with Joel Embiid? Is this not your guy? Is this not what you wanted? This city loves blue-collar work ethic. Philadelphia sports fans love it because it's who they are. And Joel Embiid is telling you, I want to win a championship. I'm going to do my job. I am not going to put anyone at risk. And I'm going to do what it takes. And I'm not thrilled with this situation right now. But I'm going to go out there and do what it takes to win a championship. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. I love the fact that Embiid is being so brutally honest. Because he is basically telling you that he's not in this for the fame and the fortune. He's telling you, I'm going out here and I'm going to try to win. And as Joel Embiid puts it, he knows exactly what he's capable in this Sixers offense.
I know what I'm capable of, and I know what my teammates think of me. I know I'm capable of carrying the team, and so it's all about me being assertive. If I feel like I'm not getting the ball, I just gotta, talk to them and, do what I have to do. But at the end of the day, I should never be in a position to complain about, not getting the ball just because of who I am.
Because of who he is. When I heard him say that yesterday, I immediately thought of what somebody else said about Joel Embiid. If you remember, we had Dave McMenamin on 97.3 ESPN recently. And Dave McMenamin covered Joel Embiid in that series playoff run last year. And when Joel Embiid says, I know what I'm capable of, when Joel Embiid says, I can carry a team, I immediately thought of when Dave McMenamin told us this right here on 97.3 ESPN.
I covered the Sixers throughout their playoff run last year. Listen, Joel Embiid, when he was right, looked better than Kawhi Leonard did in that second round series. I think he's as dominant as any player in the league when he's right. You would hope that he has used this time to get himself more right than he ever has before. I think you can really ride him.
Joel Embiid thinks he can carry a team. Dave McMenamin says the Sixers can ride him, that when he's at his best, he's on the same level as Kawhi Leonard. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. It's Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg will join us coming up in about 5 minutes from now. Bill from Absecon chimes in at 609-403-0973. He says, Joel always says the right thing, and he means it at the time. But what kind of shape will he be in? How many minutes per game will he play after having 3 months off? I hope he comes back, says Bill from Absecon, and dominates. But his past doesn't give me much hope. I hope his heart stays in it. It's Bill from Absecon. Well, a couple things, Bill. Number one, Joel, I've never questioned his heart. At times, I've questioned, where his head is at. Sometimes it seems like his head's not in the game, especially in the regular season, because it's a long regular season. But I don't think I've ever questioned his heart, Bill from Absecon. And I agree with you. Joel means it. Now, what kind of shape he'll be in, I think, is a little less important just because of the fact that Joel, let's be realistic, he's in the same situation everyone else is. Everyone else has been off for 3 months. It's not just him. The whole league's been off. So if Joel is on the same starting point, at the same starting line as everybody else, I think you should have hope, Bill from Absecon. I think you should have hope that he can go out there and get the job done. Dan from EHC chimes in at 609-403-0973, says, I will believe it when I see it. You can't fool knowledgeable Philly fans. Run through a wall like Aaron Rowan did, Dan from EHC says. Well, first of all, Joel Embiid probably dives on the floor more than almost any big man I've ever seen in the NBA in the last 20 years. Half these athletes, all they do is tiptoe and don't want to get hurt and don't want to go out there and be aggressive at times. And Joel is throwing his body on the floor. So, to me, he's already given you the Aaron Rowan run through the wall. Maybe not one iconic moment like the Aaron Rowan play, but Joel Embiid is a more talented player in his sport. He's a bigger star in his sport. He has better abilities than Aaron Rowan. And frankly, you didn't win a World Series with Aaron Rowan. You won a World Series with Shane Victorino in center field. So, no offense, I understand why Philly fans love the Aaron Rowan play, but let's be realistic. That guy and that play didn't win you squaddly gook, all right? It didn't win you anything. All it did was get you hyped up and get your juices flowing. If you listen to Joel Embiid and can't get your juices flowing off of that because he didn't run through a wall like Aaron Rowan did after we've seen Joel dive into the crowd and dive on the floor for balls and get in the fights with Karl Anthony Towns, I don't know what to do. I can't help you, Dan, from EHD, because Joel Embiid is showing you those kind of things. All right, keep the text coming, 609-403-0973. I'm Josh Hennig. This is the warm-up here on 97.3 ESPN. Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg joins us next right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Josh Hennig back here on the warm-up, 97.3 ESPN. We'll go back to your text in just a bit at 609-403-0973. But as he does each and every Wednesday, it is a Weinberg Wednesday, and that means Dave Weinberg joins us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. You can catch all of his extra points columns at 97.3ESPN.com. He's covered the Eagles for a long time, over 26 years, Hall of Fame boxing writer, and more. As I said, he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So let's get all the hyper serious stuff out of the way first. Obviously, this Desean Jackson story has in many ways dominated many aspects of the news cycle over the last 36 hours. So I wanted to start with, talk to the folks about, you've covered Desean, you've been in the locker room around him in the past. So what is your impressions of him as a person in light of what has happened with him over the last 36 hours?
Oh, boy. Well, when he originally came back to the Eagles, I mean, when he first joined the Eagles, he was immature, to say the least. The Eagles kind of stressed the point that he was older now. He's a family man. has grown both emotionally and mentally, physically, and they were trying to push that narrative last season. But in the wake of these, the recent posts that he's made, and the half-hearted apology, I'm really not sure that he's indeed as grown as much as they would like to say.
With that being said, I think,
sense?
yeah, really quick, if I just jump in here. Did you find it interesting that there were two different apologies? The one before he talked to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, and then the one afterward?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the second one wasn't him. I mean, that's his agent. Yeah, I don't know if he understood or if he didn't care about the ramifications of what he posted. And I think when the Eagles kind of like made it clear to him what he had done was, way out of bounds. I think maybe he had like a change of heart. I still don't know that he understands or agrees with their stance, but I guess just to save face and possibly save his job, he was willing to do whatever they wanted him to do.
Now, we know the Eagles have a history of dealing with players who have said and done things off the field. And I know a lot of people are drawing parallels between Desean Jackson in 2020 and what happened years ago with Riley Cooper. But Dave, is that really a fair...
I don't understand, but that's okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that really a fair line to draw? Because I feel like they're two totally different situations.
Yeah, I mean, one was, first off, it was 7 years ago, and this is probably an unpopular stance, but Riley was caught on camera by TMZ or whoever was at the concert. By the way, he was there with Jason Kelsey and Chip Kelly, which people seem to forget. But anyway, he made that really stupid remark, and naturally went viral. Desean willfully and purposely said what he said. It wasn't like a spur of the moment, at a concert, not knowing that cameras are on you. This was intentional, and I just don't see the correlation between the two. To be honest with you, I mean, don't get me wrong. What Riley did was despicable, horrible, and he should have been suspended, which he wasn't. But in my view, I just think Desean's was a little bit more serious, just in my view. And just to be clear, I'm not Jewish, so I know that some people probably think, make that natural assumption because of my last name. I am, but I'm not. But in any case, whether I am or not, that has no bearing on the fact that I think that what he did was worse.
With that being said, what do you think should be the proper punishment? You mentioned that Riley Cooper didn't get suspended. He was only fined. So is that a precedent for Desean, or is that one of those things where that was a different, quote-unquote, regime in charge back then?
Oh, no, it's the same regime. Joe Banner was gone by then. It was definitely, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. Chip Kelly was in his first season, so he really didn't have much to say. I think the punishment might have been even worse for Riley if Michael Vick hadn't come to his defense a little bit. And he was the one who kind of much saved Riley's season there by having his back, by mentioning that he's a friend and that he had forgiven him. There were a lot of guys who didn't. Not a lot of guys, but I would say the locker room was pretty much divided, even after his apology, which I thought came from the heart. I mean, whether it was sincere or not, I don't know, but I thought it was. And I don't know how you can say, well, Riley wasn't suspended, so Desean shouldn't be suspended. I just think they're two different scenarios. Just because you made a mistake with Riley doesn't mean you make the same mistake with Desean. I don't think Desean gets a pass just because Riley did. No, what that suspension is, it's not for me to say. I mean, I've heard people say a couple games. I've heard of people say his days with the Eagles are done. But I imagine Lurie and Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman are going to have to sit down and figure out. But they have to do something.
Dave Weinberg joining us here on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Dave, the other thing that came out with the Eagles recently is and I find this very fascinating, this offer to defer their season tickets to 2021. And, one of the things I immediately think of, and I think you did too on Twitter, which was you have a season ticket holder like Mike Trout. And Mike Trout...
that was the first thing that came to my mind, yep.
Yeah, because what's Mike Trout doing right now? He's at Angels camp, but he's wearing a mask. And he's talked about how he wants to be there for the birth of his child. So, if he has those kind of concerns with his job, he has to have the same kind of concerns with the Eagles tickets. So I'm assuming, Dave, that Trout wouldn't be the only one thinking, what, I'm going to accept this offer to defer to 2021.
Yeah, I mean, if he's as concerned about it as he seems to be, I don't know how he could go ahead and either back out or leave the team and then go ahead and you see him front row and center at an Eagles game in September or October or whatever. That kind of defeats the purpose of his stance now. So I would think that he really has no choice but to defer his tickets, just as the right thing to do if he's really worried about his newborn coming up in August and their health and the health and well-being of his family. It would seem like there would be logical that he would defer his season tickets. I'll be curious to see. Like I know quite a few guys people who have season tickets. I haven't reached out to them yet, but I'll be curious to see how they do it. It's obvious that the Eagles are going to have to, and every team is going to have to reduce the size of their attendance for games if they even have fans at all. But so it's going to be interesting to see which season ticket holders take this option. But I would think, in light of everything that's happened, that might be the sensible thing to do, is to just keep your season tickets and defer them for another year. Although, from what I understand, I don't know what the procedure is in terms of playoff tickets. Like, if you defer, do you also give up your right to go to a playoff game if the Eagles happen to make it? I don't know what that's going to be like.
Well, the other thing I find interesting, Dave, is that there's been talk that the league is going to give fans these disclaimer clauses if they want to go to a game, basically saying, I understand attending a game, something might happen to me. And I kind of find it interesting that if that is ever an option, and let's say they do have diminished attendance and whatever number that is, 30% capacity, is that even a smart option because of the fact that there's so many unknowns and what ifs that's going on right now?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess so obviously you have to have, pretty strict protocols in place in terms of social distancing, wearing masks, and that kind of thing. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out. I mean, it would seem to me that the safe thing to do, the logical thing to do, is to just, play without fans or severely reduce the attendance, maybe to 25% or something like that. Maybe something like the casinos are doing at the moment. I guess the league is going to have to really sit down and take a hard look at what they're going to do from a fan standpoint here.
You mentioned the casinos in Atlantic City. We broadcast last week to Mike Gill and Hunter Brody from the Sports Bash from the Hard Rock. They have these temperature scanners when you walk in the door, and everybody's wearing masks and everything. So we know that there's a way to do this. I would assume the NFL has the financial wherewithal to be able to do similar, if even more stringent procedures. But I think, Dave, there's a difference between them being able to pull that off and if they should pull it off. To me, those are two different things.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're the NFL and every other major sport, they're predicated on attendance. So of course, TV contracts are kind of what drive the boat, so to speak. But the more fans in the stands, it's better for the teams, better for the concessions, merchandise sales, everything. So there's a lot at stake here in terms of how many fans do you allow in, but you also have to err on the side of caution as well. I mean, you don't want someone to God forbid get COVID-19 and then wind up being seriously ill or even worse than that. They're going to have a hard time explaining themselves. But you're right. I guess if you sign a waiver, maybe that's the way that they escape responsibility for it. I don't know.
But we also know that a lot of players are having to sign similar agreements. The
Sure.
players who are entering these bubbles are signing similar agreements. But there's a huge difference between my employer is paying me to be here, and a customer who's paying to get in the door. And I think that's kind of where, at least for me, Dave, where the rub is. Whereas when one person, it's their job to be there, being paid to be there, whereas the other person is literally paying you, the person is putting on the product to let them in the door. I think those are just, it's just a different dynamic to me.
Right. I mean, it's just like a casino blackjack dealer who has to be there as opposed to the customer who just voluntarily goes to play blackjack. Yeah, if it's your job, it's your profession. That's a whole different ballgame as opposed to being, voluntarily going to a restaurant or to a casino or to a ball game. That's a whole different scenario. You're right.
Dave, we know how much you love baseball. We've talked about that here numerous times. And, the reports over the weekend of, they're having troubles with delivery and they're having troubles of getting the tests back and the results. And then you had multiple teams shut down their camps on Sunday and Monday. And, the Phillies said that they had, Adam Hazley, his test was a whole mess of a situation. And then all of a sudden today, ESPN gets their hold on the results, Dave. The results were that the ESPN says that the players and coaches combined had in the first round of tests a 1.8% positive rate, and then the second round being a 0.5% positive rate. So that sounds great, Dave, but in the light of the fact they had trouble even getting the test even done, I still don't have a lot of confidence in those numbers.
Yeah, it just seems so confusing to me how, they, I would have thought they would have done their homework. They would have, placed all these, it seemed that they placed, the proper protocols in place, yet had, so many positive tests. And you're right, there's been so much inconsistency in terms of testing, the results, and that kind of thing, that it does make you wonder if they're really accurate. I'm of the opinion, though, that I think the fact that it's been such a minuscule amount, that tends me to believe that maybe they are headed in the right direction. Like you said, the second test was significantly lower than the first, so maybe they finally do have a handle on it, and that both teams and players and managers are a little more confident in terms of going ahead with what remains of the season.
Do you think for a guy like Mike Trout that those kind of numbers will maybe at least give him a little bit more hope that, it is going to genuinely be safe? Or do you think Mike's just one of those guys where those kind of things are just not going to matter to him because at the end of the day, he's just going to do what he needs to do to protect his family no matter what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for Mike, but knowing him a little bit the way I do and his family, I know that family comes first with them, and with his parents and brother and wife and what have you. So yeah, I'm tending to believe that he's just going to do what's right for his family, regardless of what the statistics say. But all those guys are in a really tough situation because it's like teachers, it's like doctors, it's like. Like I said, I keep mentioning the casino and, restaurant, hotels, that's their job, and they're expected to perform it, regardless of the risk, I guess. And so it's a real tough call for Mike. I mean, I don't know what he's going to do. I would assume that he'd be at least going to start the season, and then, once their baby arrives, take it from there. But that's going to be a really difficult decision for him to make.
Dave, I remiss before I let you go. Your Extra Points column last week over at 97.3 ESPN.com talked about the situation with one of the biggest things locally in our area, the lifeguard races, and how in July the events are canceled. They're reevaluating for August. Just talk a little bit about, what those events really mean to the community and, how disappointed it is that, even the fact that we know that businesses are slowly have the opportunity to open up, that you're losing a huge part of the summer season locally without those races.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that some people may not realize just the impact and the value that lifeguard racing has. I mean, it's a very steeped in tradition dating back to the 1920s or so, where rolls up and down the Jersey Shore, where we're competing against each other. The South Jersey race just had its 80th running. I think the 80th edition of the race was last year, and there's several other races there. The Best and Callahan's in North Wildwood, the Caymay County Championships, and there's the so-called Big Three, the Dutch Hoffmans, the Margate Memorials, and the and the South Jersey, they all date back, 50, 60, 70 years. And, there's generations of lifeguards who have competed in it, fathers, grandfathers, sons. It's a part of the community. It's a part of beach patrols all the way from Cape May Point to even Long Beach Island. And, the fact that they haven't been able to stage these races is a big hit for them. I mean, it's the first time since probably World War II that the races haven't been held, and it's really tough on them because people take a lot of pride in competing, both for themselves and for their patrols and even their communities. And it's a real shame that they had to delay it.
Absolutely. He's Dave Weinberg. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Again, I encourage you to check out his extra points column about the lifeguard races. It's a great read over at 973ESPN.com. And Dave joins us as he does each and every Wednesday here on the warm-up for a Weinberg Wednesday on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Dave, I appreciate the time and I appreciate the conversation as always.
Oh, thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. Take care.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Back to your text coming up next on 609-403-0973. I want to remind you, 97.3 ESPN is teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers for some fantastic local restaurants. And this week's big deal, $25 gift card. Good for use at either Yuri's Waterfront Restaurant and also the Boathouse Restaurant at the foot of the bridge in Wildwood for just $12.50. That's right, $25 gift card for just $12.50. Yuri's Waterfront Restaurant and the Boathouse Restaurant at the foot of the bridge in Wildwood. This deal is on the table for you to get this Friday morning at seizethedeal.com. Listen, these deals are really great opportunities for you to go out to some amazing restaurants. And this week you get the opportunity to go to two different restaurants, Yuri's Waterfront Restaurant and the Boathouse Restaurant in Wildwood. Seizethedeal.com. That is this Friday. For more information, check out the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Josh Hennig back here on the warm-up 97.3 ESPN. Mine are coming up. Sports Bash. Mike Gill, Hunter Brody, a busy show. John Clayton, the professor, joins the show coming up at 5 o'clock. Also in the 5 o'clock hour, Yahoo Sports NBA, Keith Smith. More insights on what's going on with the NBA. A lot of teams are arriving in the bubble today and tomorrow. Sixers are heading down tomorrow. Also, football for Jeff Mosher will talk more about this Desean Jackson situation as we talk with Dave Weinberg coming up at 4 o'clock. Football 4 powered by InsideTheBirds.com. But right now, back to your text messages. 609-403-0973. I was asking you, listen, I love what Embiid said. I love this candor. I love this honesty. He's telling you how he feels. He's telling you what he thinks. But I'm getting the feeling there's a lot of people, they're not vibing with Joel Embiid like I am. Mike from the Village chimes in and says, I agree, Joel does have a lot of heart and he hustles, but he's just fragile. But here's the problem with that perspective. Unless you're like an Iron Man and you never get injured, like unless you're like a guy like LeBron James and you went, 16 years without ever missing any games due to a serious injury, everybody gets injured at some point. Yes, Joel Embiid has been injured more than the average NBA player, but more often than not, he's still out there during playoff games. It's not like he's missing entire playoff series because of injuries left and right. The Miami Heat series, he got his face smashed by his own teammate during the regular season. I'm not going to be mad at him for that. Okay, maybe the stomach bug virus, whatever it was, maybe could have been avoided. Maybe he should be a little bit more conscientious of where he's eating and what he's eating. But I'm not going to act like, he's, the Sam Bowie over here constantly, breaking down left and right. Tom from Summers Point chimes in at 609-403-0973. Tom says, I'll wait until the fourth quarter of a big game to see if Joel Embiid's matured. That's fair. I'll give you that. But I will say that I'm a little less concerned about Embiid showing up in the fourth quarter of a game, considering how well he's done from the free throw line compared to a Ben Simmons or a Tobias Harris. I think I have more questions about those guys when the fourth quarter hits than Joel Embiid. But maybe that's just me. 609-403-0973. Joel Texter chimes in and says, remember, they were lucky, the Leonard bounce, for taking them out versus Toronto. Yeah, the Leonard bounce was lucky, but I would also say that, as Dave McMenamin pointed out previously to us, if Joel Embiid was healthy for that whole series, are we really sure Toronto would have even won? Because Joel was dealing with that stomach bug, and he was sick, and he was having to get fluids and everything. If Joel Embiid is healthy, they might have beaten Toronto, and then what happens? Do they beat the Bucks? Do the Bucks beat them? Are the Warriors going to be champions? I don't know. You know, you want to go down the what if rabbit hole, it gets really ridiculous. I think that there's a perception of Embiid because of the, shall I call it, embellished reports about his Chick-fil-A love. There have been embellished reports about his personality and what he does off the court. And I think that's because of a perception of him has caused him to really be viewed differently than he really should. And I don't think that's fair. I think that, you know, if Joel Embiid fit into the mold that people wanted him to be, I think there'd be a different perception of him. He's saying everything you want him to say. He's being honest. Well, we want our athletes to be honest. Well, he's giving you honesty. We want our athletes to tell us how loyal and dedicated they are to the city. Well, he's giving you that. But it's because it's coming out of his mouth, you don't like it. You know, if it was some other athlete in the Sixers uniform, you'd be all drooling and loving it. But because it comes out of Joel's mouth, you're not giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I think we need to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think we need to turn around and tell Joel Embiid, we're with you, we're behind you, instead of bringing up Chick-fil-A or bringing up, well, you know, he's fragile. Why don't we give the guy the benefit of the doubt before we rain on his parade? At least he's out there trying. You know, when the Sixers had guys like Iguodala and Evan Turner, they didn't give you any of this stuff. They barely gave you any juice on the court. Joel Embiid's diving on the floor, getting in fights. I'd rather you be too passionate and maybe get injured every once in a while than be completely dispassionate and, like Evan Turner, be a complete and utter bust of a first-round lottery pick. I'm excited for the Sixers to return. And you're going to be able to hear the Sixers when they return, and you're going to see the Sixers when they return, and you're going to hear and see exactly how good they can be, because I believe in this Sixers team if Joel Embiid is right. I'm not going to say they're going to win a championship, but they could definitely make a run.